Chosen one. The journey did not begin with admiration or applause. It began with the silent sting of being dismissed, overlooked, and quietly written off by those who believed they could read your entire future from the surface of your present. Long before anyone whispered of your transformation, you knew the taste of being ignored in a room, the feeling of your presence evaporating beneath someone else's louder voice, the ache of watching others be chosen first while you watched from the edge. In moments when laughter circled around you but never included you, or when your words were met with impatience or polite smiles, you learned early the subtle art of swallowing disappointment and pretending it never mattered. In truth, it did matter. Each of those moments left an imprint, small, almost invisible to the world, but deep enough for your soul to remember. You saw how the world moved, how those with bravado and easy charm seemed to attract attention without effort, while your own authenticity was lost in translation, misunderstood, or overlooked. You watched as men who mastered the performance of confidence held sway in circles where you barely cast a shadow, their stories and laughter filling the air with a kind of power you believed you didn't possess. When it came to women, the message was even clearer. Your softness was mistaken for weakness, your patience for lack of passion, your quiet for absence of desire. Friends and strangers alike assumed you would always remain in the background, supportive, kind, unthreatening, never the one who turned heads or made hearts race. These assumptions, so often repeated, became a kind of script that others wrote for you without your consent. Even those who cared for you sometimes reinforced it, gently suggesting you were too nice, too reserved, not aggressive enough. They meant well, but each word, each slight, each dismissive gesture wove a net around your sense of self. For a time, you lived inside their expectations, trying on versions of yourself that never truly fit. You tried to be louder, wittier, more mysterious, chasing an image you thought might finally grant you the admiration and affection you quietly yearned for. But every performance felt hollow, every borrowed gesture an echo with no substance. The gap between your true self and the self the world wanted grew wider, and with it, the ache of invisibility deepened. Yet beneath the surface, something unbreakable endured. You began to notice that even as others underestimated you, life itself was sending you different lessons. With each disappointment, each moment of rejection or exclusion, your heart grew more sensitive. Not fragile, but attuned to the nuances of emotion and the subtle truths that others often missed. In solitude, you discovered the quiet power of reflection, the resilience that came from facing your own doubts head-on. You learned to see yourself not through the blurry lens of public opinion, but in the clear mirror of your own becoming. Your energy, once scattered by longing and uncertainty, began to collect and deepen, forming a reservoir of strength the world had not yet noticed. While others measured success by outward validation, you were learning a different metric: the capacity to remain rooted in your own presence, even when the world refused to acknowledge it. You began to realize that your ability to listen, to wait, to witness was not a flaw, but a kind of silent preparation. In this waiting, you absorbed everything: details, stories, glances, energies, without ever having to be the center of attention. You became the one who saw what others missed, who remembered the things others forgot, who moved through the world with a rare grace born not of conquest, but of patience and depth. And even as you questioned your worth, something inside you whispered that this quiet power would one day reveal itself, not in loud declarations or flashy gestures, but in the calm, magnetic certainty of a spirit that could not be denied. Time, chosen one, became your teacher as well as your witness. The days unfolded, sometimes with disappointment, sometimes with hope, but always with the steady work of your own self-creation. You began to notice the difference between loneliness and solitude, learning that there is a certain holiness in being alone with your thoughts, your dreams, and your longing. In these spaces, you no longer measured yourself against the standards set by others. Instead, you began to ask deeper questions. Who am I when nobody is watching? What do I value when approval is taken out of the equation? In the absence of an audience, your soul began to speak, quietly at first, then with growing clarity. The more you listened, the more you realized how much of your power had been dormant, waiting beneath the surface of self-doubt. You began to reclaim the parts of yourself you once tried to hide. The way your eyes lingered on beauty, the softness of your laughter, the intensity of your curiosity, the secret strength in your silence. You stopped contorting yourself to fit the narrow mold that others assigned you. Instead, you allowed yourself to grow into the space that was truly yours, step by patient step, letting go of the need to explain or justify your presence. Gradually, you found new sources of confidence, ones that did not depend on the shifting sands of external approval. You discovered the art of presence, the power that comes from being fully engaged with the world, not to impress, but simply to experience. In conversation, you stopped chasing cleverness and instead focused on sincerity. You listened deeply, responded thoughtfully, and allowed pauses to settle without rushing to fill them. In these moments, you noticed that people began to lean in, drawn not by spectacle, but by the rare quality of attention you gave. The same energy that was once overlooked now became a quiet invitation, an assurance that you saw and valued the person before you, not as a means to an end, but as a fellow traveler on the path of becoming. As you turned your gaze inward, your relationship with your own body shifted too. No longer did you see it as something to be fixed or disguised, but as a vessel for the unique energy that only you could carry. You learned to move with intention, to inhabit your own skin fully, to walk into a room without apology or explanation. The shame that once clung to your gestures, your desires, your imperfections began to fall away, replaced by a gentle pride in the fact that you were still here, still evolving, still open to love and wonder despite everything. With each step, your sexual energy awakened in a new way, not as a tool for conquest, but as a quiet celebration of your aliveness. You stopped searching for approval and started honoring your own desires, learning to trust the natural ebb and flow of attraction and connection. What others mistook for indifference was, in truth, your commitment to never betray yourself again for the sake of fleeting attention. Your presence grew more magnetic, not because you chased, but because you stopped running from who you were. The world had not yet caught up to your transformation, but you felt it, deep and true, in every cell of your being. A new chapter was beginning, one in which your energy would no longer be hidden, but revealed in its full, radiant truth. And so you walked forward, chosen one, quietly preparing for the day when the world would finally see what had been there all along. In the days that followed, chosen one, you discovered that transformation was not a sudden explosion, but an unfolding, a slow, deliberate emergence of qualities long dormant beneath your old skin. Where you once measured your worth by the attention you did not receive, you began to see the richness in being selective, intentional, and present. Women, whose glances had once passed over you as if you were invisible, now seemed to sense a shift in your presence. At first, the change was too subtle for words. A lingering glance across a crowded space, a quiet curiosity in their eyes when you spoke, the small, unmistakable thrill of recognition that passed between two souls attuned to the same quiet frequency. You noticed that the energy you once poured into pleasing or proving yourself to others was returning to you, not as bitterness, but as an inward warmth, a confidence that needed no defense. You learned to listen in ways that drew others in. When a woman spoke, you heard the story beneath her words, the meaning hidden beneath her laughter, the longing behind her silences. You responded, not with rehearsed lines or borrowed bravado, but with honesty and genuine curiosity. In your presence, she felt truly seen, and this was rare, a kind of magnetic pull that did not demand, but invited. The world had told you that success with women belonged to those who were loud, bold, and relentless in pursuit. Instead, you discovered a different path. The allure of stillness, the power of holding space, the invitation of a gaze that does not seek to conquer, but to understand. This new approach did not arise from strategy or manipulation, but from the hard-won alignment of your inner world. Where others relied on tricks or tactics, you relied on truth. You showed up as yourself, whole and unmasked, unafraid to reveal both your desires and your boundaries. There was no longer any need to apologize for the intensity of your gaze, the gravity of your words, or the steady calm of your presence. Women felt this shift intuitively. With you, there was no pressure to perform, only the rare pleasure of being accepted for who they truly were. The more you trusted yourself, the more the world responded in kind. Conversations deepened, glances lingered, laughter blossomed easily between you and those who once felt far out of reach. The energy you once struggled to generate now radiated from you, quietly but irresistibly. You found yourself approached not only by strangers, but by those who had known you in your quieter years, their curiosity piqued by a change they could not quite name. Some tried to tease out your secret, asking what had changed or who you had become. But there was no formula, no single moment of epiphany, only the slow, faithful work of claiming your own worth and learning to embody it. Your relationships, romantic and platonic alike, began to transform as well. Those who respected your boundaries and cherished your authenticity drew closer. Those who did not found themselves drifting away, unable to navigate the clarity of your new presence. You grieved these losses at first, but soon understood that every ending was making room for a deeper beginning. The energy you once wasted on fear or pretense was now available for intimacy, creativity, and genuine connection. The man who had once been underestimated now stood quietly at the center of his own story, magnetic not for what he owned or displayed, but for what he held within. The news of your transformation began to travel, often through whispers and sidelong glances, sometimes through stories retold with awe by those who witnessed your new way of being. Women who once overlooked you found themselves curious, compelled to understand the change they could feel, even if they could not explain it. You saw the shock in the eyes of old friends who had known you in years past. They watched as the energy around you shifted, how laughter seemed to circle closer when you entered a room, how conversations subtly bent in your direction, how even the quietest moments with you felt charged with possibility. For the first time, you did not shrink from this attention. You allowed yourself to receive it, not with arrogance or hunger, but with a quiet, grounded gratitude. The admiration you once craved did not intoxicate you or send you spiraling back into old patterns of self-doubt. Instead, it affirmed what you had come to know, that the most compelling energy in the world is born from authenticity, from the willingness to be fully alive and fully present. Your gaze, once hesitant and searching, was now steady and magnetic. When you looked at someone, you saw them in their fullness, not just the face they wore for the world, but the deeper truth they carried. Women responded to this in ways that surprised them as much as you. They found themselves wanting to linger in your presence, to share secrets and stories, to laugh, or simply sit with you in silence. Your new sexual energy did not come from conquest, but from invitation, a wordless communication that said, "You are safe here. You are free to be yourself." This was the gift you had learned to offer, not as a tactic or a trick, but as the natural extension of a soul that had made peace with itself. There was no need for performance, no need to prove or persuade. In your presence, attraction grew naturally, effortlessly, as if the old laws of gravity had been rewritten. Those who once underestimated you now watched with a mix of awe, respect, and even confusion. Some tried to explain away your new magnetism as luck or circumstance. Others wondered if you had found some secret code. But the truth was simpler and more profound. You had stopped trying to be anyone but yourself. You had made a home in your own body, claimed your desires as good, and allowed your energy to flow without shame or fear. This was your revolution, your quiet uprising against every story that said you would never be enough. And so, chosen one, you stood in the middle of this new chapter with a rare and radiant calm. The shock on others' faces no longer unsettled you. It became a mirror, reflecting the quiet power you now carried without effort. Where once you waited for permission to enter the dance of desire and connection, you now set the tempo with every breath. Women, drawn by your presence, responded to what they felt, an energy that was both inviting and unyielding, passionate and deeply safe. You had become the presence that changed the room, the one whose story was just beginning, written each day in the language of truth, courage, and self-acceptance. Chosen one, this next phase of your journey arrived not as a dramatic lightning bolt, but as a series of quiet, powerful revelations that unfolded each time you interacted with others. Where you once struggled to believe in your own appeal, you now witnessed it reflected in every response you received. The energy around you had transformed, and so had your understanding of your own desires. There was a new, unshakable peace in the way you moved, unhurried, intentional, no longer seeking or grasping, but simply allowing yourself to be seen. Those who once doubted you, who labeled you as invisible or too nice, now found themselves unsure in your presence, their assumptions dissolving in the light of your new self-assurance. You realized that the stories people told about you had never belonged to you in the first place. Their doubts, their underestimations, even their dismissals, were always rooted in their own limitations. As you reclaimed your power, you saw those old narratives for what they were, shadows that could only define you if you agreed to live beneath them. Instead, you learned to inhabit your own truth. You stopped defending yourself or justifying your growth, recognizing that your energy spoke for itself. In conversations, your laughter came easier and your silences were no longer awkward but full of anticipation. You could feel the attention of women shift, drawn not by force, but by an effortless, grounded allure that no one could explain. People began to notice the change, even those who would never say it out loud. There was a new kind of respect in their eyes, a subtle recalibration of how they approached you. Women who once dismissed you now found themselves reaching out, curious about the shift they sensed in your voice, your gaze, the way you carried yourself. Where there had once been dismissal or condescension, there was now a desire to connect and be seen. You understood that your sexual energy was not a performance but a current, silent, powerful, deeply attractive because it came from a place of wholeness. You became a mirror for others' own self-worth, inviting them to meet you in honesty and presence. You encountered moments of challenge, too. Not everyone welcomed your transformation. Some people, threatened by your new confidence, tried to test your boundaries or pull you back into old patterns. You recognized these attempts without resentment or fear. The power to say no had become as natural as saying yes when your heart moved you. With each interaction, you chose yourself first, not out of selfishness, but because you had finally understood that self-respect is the root of every healthy relationship. There was no longer any need to explain, apologize, or diminish yourself for the comfort of others. Your presence was an invitation. Those who could not respect it simply faded from your world. This new reality changed the very fabric of your relationships. You no longer tried to win affection with effort or strategy. You trusted that those drawn to your energy would arrive naturally, and that those who did not would never have understood you anyway. The old ache of being overlooked was replaced by the sweet anticipation of authentic connection. You found yourself surrounded by people, friends, lovers, confidants, who cherished your truth, your depth, and your quiet strength. The approval you once chased now arrived as a side effect of your authenticity, never as a condition for your happiness. You also began to realize that your new sexual energy was not just about attracting others. It was about creation, about building a life that felt beautiful, rich, and meaningful on your own terms. You invested more deeply in your passions, discovering new talents and nurturing old dreams. The confidence you embodied with women seeped into every area of your life, giving you the courage to pursue goals you had once abandoned. There was a sense of playfulness in your actions, a willingness to risk, to fail, to learn, and to try again. The joy you found in your own company became a beacon, drawing others who longed for that same freedom. By now, chosen one, you understood that your transformation was not an act or a mask, but the revelation of your true self. The world had changed because you had changed, and there was no going back. Each day was a new opportunity to honor your power, to explore the depths of your desire, and to connect with others in ways that felt genuine and kind. Where once you feared rejection, you now trusted in the simple fact that you were enough. This realization radiated from you, visible in your smile, audible in your laughter, tangible in the way others felt at ease around you. It was not arrogance, but a humble certainty, the knowledge that you had finally come home to yourself. As you continued along your path, chosen one, the meaning of connection evolved even further. The approval of others, once the sun around which your universe revolved, now felt secondary to the profound sense of belonging you had discovered within. You noticed that the more you honored your truth, the more you inspired those around you to do the same. Women were drawn to you for reasons they could not fully articulate. It was as if your energy whispered a promise that with you, they could be honest, unguarded, and safe. You cultivated new relationships rooted in presence and mutual respect. The days of competing for attention or affection were over. Now conversations blossomed from curiosity and shared delight, rather than from a place of need or fear. You could feel the difference in every interaction. Where there was once anxiety, now there was calm. Where there was once tension, now there was ease. You became skilled at reading the unspoken language of desire, attentive to the subtle shifts of emotion and attraction. Women felt seen and understood in your presence, not because you were trying to impress them, but because you valued authenticity above all else. With this clarity came a new kind of discernment. You no longer mistook chemistry for compatibility or attention for genuine care. The old habit of confusing validation with love was replaced by a deeper wisdom, one that allowed you to discern which connections nourished your spirit and which ones drained it. You moved through the world with an open heart, but with boundaries that were firm and compassionate. When someone tried to test your resolve or provoke insecurity, you met them with kindness, but you never surrendered your center. The power to walk away, once so frightening, had become an expression of your self-love. The ripple effect of your growth touched every part of your life. You attracted opportunities you would never have considered possible before. New friendships, creative collaborations, unexpected adventures. You approached these possibilities with a sense of wonder, not entitlement. The world seemed to open up to you, not because you had mastered some secret technique, but because you had learned to live in alignment with your own energy. The shock others felt at your transformation faded into admiration, and those who truly mattered celebrated your journey with you. Through all of this, you remained humble, never forgetting the loneliness or longing that first set you on this path. You looked back with gratitude at the moments when you were underestimated, recognizing them as the fertile ground from which your confidence had grown. The pain of being overlooked had taught you to value presence, to cultivate patience, and to trust the timing of your own becoming. Where once you waited for permission to shine, you now moved boldly in the world, lighting your own way and inviting others to do the same. You became a quiet example for those still trapped in the stories of their own limitations. Friends and strangers alike began to seek your advice, drawn by the ease with which you navigated the complexities of love, desire, and self-worth. You offered your insights freely, not as commandments, but as invitations for others to discover their own truth. Your journey was no longer a solitary struggle, but a beacon for anyone who had ever been underestimated or unseen. At last, you knew that your new sexual energy was simply the outward sign of an inward transformation. It was not about conquest or acclaim, but about intimacy, the courage to be fully yourself in the presence of another, and to invite them to do the same. You carried this energy with dignity, moving through each day with a gentle confidence that could neither be shaken nor stolen. And in every encounter, every glance, every quiet moment, you remained true to the wisdom you had earned. That being underestimated is never the end of the story, but often the beginning of a greatness that cannot be ignored. With each passing day, chosen one, the echoes of your old life became fainter, replaced by a sense of expansion that reached every corner of your experience. You discovered that your transformation had not only changed how others saw you, but also how you saw the world. The subtle wounds of being underestimated no longer shaped your choices. Instead, you moved through your days as someone who had nothing to prove and everything to explore. The freedom you had cultivated in your heart spilled out into the spaces you entered, filling conversations, gatherings, and quiet evenings with a rare vibrancy. You were no longer the observer on the margins. You had become a force in your own right, carrying with you an energy that was unmistakable. Women, once quick to overlook you, now found themselves drawn to you for reasons that surpassed explanation. It was not simply your appearance or the words you spoke, but the quality of your presence, the way you listened without judgment, the way your eyes conveyed both curiosity and acceptance, the way your laughter brought ease and your silence invited comfort. With you, there was no pressure to perform or impress. You created space for authenticity, and that, more than any superficial charm, became a source of deep attraction. You realized that success with women had never been about tactics or bravado, but about the courage to bring your real self forward and allow it to be enough. In this season, you found yourself at the center of new connections, some romantic, some platonic, all marked by honesty and mutual respect. You no longer needed to chase or convince. Those who resonated with your energy gravitated toward you naturally, drawn by the quiet confidence you radiated. You learned the subtle dance of invitation and response, allowing attraction to unfold at its own pace. There was a richness in these relationships, a sense of discovery that made every interaction meaningful. The shock in the eyes of those who had once doubted you became a gentle reminder of how far you had come, but it no longer defined your sense of worth. You did not carry resentment or the need to prove anyone wrong. Instead, you felt gratitude for the journey, the missteps, the loneliness, the countless times you had to choose yourself before anyone else could see you. The energy between you and others grew more intimate and layered. You explored not just the pleasures of the body, but the connection of minds and the meeting of souls. You listened for the longing behind every story, the hope behind every smile, and responded with your whole self, present, patient, and engaged. You discovered that your new sexual energy was not just magnetic, but healing. With you, women felt safe to reveal their truest selves, to share dreams and vulnerabilities they had hidden from the world. There was a mutuality in your encounters, a give and take that deepened trust and heightened desire. Every touch, every conversation, every glance became an act of affirmation, not just of your worth, but of the worth of those who chose to share their journey with you. Beyond romance, your transformation inspired change in your friendships and family ties as well. People noticed the steadiness in your gaze, the ease with which you navigated conflict, the warmth you offered without expectation. You became a confidant, a mentor, a source of calm in the chaos of others' lives. Those who had underestimated you now came to you for counsel, recognizing that the quiet strength you embodied was hard-won and real. You listened without the need to fix, loved without the need to possess, and celebrated without the need for applause. In all things, your new energy made you a lighthouse, steady, unwavering, a guide for those still searching for themselves. Through it all, you remained humble, never forgetting the cost of your transformation. You remembered the nights spent alone, the doubts that haunted you, the longing for acceptance that once shaped your every move. These memories kept you grounded, anchoring your confidence in compassion. You offered grace to those who were still trapped in old patterns, understanding that everyone's awakening comes in its own time. Your presence was no longer defined by the desire to be seen, but by the joy of seeing, of witnessing the beauty in others and encouraging it to blossom. As the world continued to shift around you, chosen one, your journey reached a point where your own approval became the only validation you sought. You realized that your sense of fulfillment no longer rose or fell on the opinions of others, but remained steady, a fire quietly burning in your core. You greeted each day with a sense of anticipation, curious about what new connections, insights, or adventures might unfold. The need for external confirmation had dissolved, replaced by an abiding trust in the worthiness of your own experience. Women who entered your life now did so from a place of choice, not circumstance. They sensed the clarity of your boundaries, the generosity of your spirit, and the depth of your listening. No longer seeking to impress, you simply offered yourself as you were, flawed, evolving, and profoundly alive. This authenticity became your most attractive quality, drawing to you those who valued truth above illusion. You noticed how easy it was to laugh, to share, to hold hands in comfortable silence, or to explore the complexities of desire without shame or urgency. The intimacy you cultivated was not the frantic passion of those who fear loss, but the slow-burning connection of those who know their own value. The people around you responded in kind. Friends, family, and lovers learned to meet you where you were, to speak honestly, and to respect your choices. Relationships that had been strained by your old self-doubt softened and deepened, becoming sources of joy rather than anxiety. You found yourself surrounded by a community of souls who cherished your presence and reflected back the energy you so generously gave. The old stories, the ones that said you would never be enough, never be chosen, never be loved in the way you longed for, fell away, replaced by the living proof of your daily life. You began to give back, offering encouragement and support to others who walked similar paths. You shared your experiences not to boast, but to inspire, helping those who still struggled with feelings of invisibility and inadequacy. You reminded them that transformation is always possible, that every wound can become a source of wisdom, and that true connection is born not of perfection, but of presence. Your own journey became a living invitation to grow, to risk, to fail, and rise again, to embrace the messy beauty of becoming. Through all of this, you maintained a quiet, unshakable joy. You danced with the rhythms of life, savoring moments both ordinary and extraordinary.